Since Warner Brothers owned their own theaters, they had sufficient venues to make the efforts financially feasible. Naturally, the quality of recorded sound did not equal that of a live orchestra, but audiences in the larger theaters quickly adapted to the technological novelty, and for those who attended the 98% of theaters in America that did not employ an orchestra, the sound of a group like the New York Philharmonic was an exciting advancement. In 1927, there were about 150 theaters wired for this type of Vitaphone sound. Within 2 years, the number would exceed 8,000. The premiere of the Vitaphone system in New York in 1926 opened with a number of short films, or they call them shorts. So, do you guys ever watch, anybody watch TCM, Turner Classic Movies? Yeah. So, in between films, they have like maybe a little 10-minute film or 15-minute film, right, to fill the gaps in between. These were all made by the Vitaphone company. And I find a lot of them, even though the quality's not that great, both the film and the sound, but it is a fascinating part of history. It was relatively short-lived. Let's see if I bring it up.
Vitaphone was started 100 years ago this year.
Right. How time flies.
When you're not there to see it.
Out front, will you tell Angela it's still freezing?
Sure.
Thanks.
Like 20 degrees difference.
I know. I never understand why I can't find on YouTube what I have in my text. I apologize.
Classes. Take charge. Start your comeback today at purdueglobal.edu.
Yeah.
There's a kid out there. She said she tried to adjust it.
All right.
No.
So, Vodafone Corporation. So, still considered the silent film era, but this short little window of time where they had what was called synchronized. Let's see. Wow, it's almost blowing cold air. It's just,
I'm sure it is from somewhere.
wow. So, Cole Porter, one of the early composers of film music. Many of his tunes became standards for their witty, urbane lyrics, and many of his scores found success on Broadway and in Hollywood films. So when we start to hear music in film, a lot of those tunes were being written by composers like Cole Porter, and their tunes could be heard on Broadway shows, right? And what started to happen is many of these Broadway shows were turned into movies, right? That went by the wayside quite a bit. Most films today are adaptations, screenplays made from books, right? So, Cole Porter, one of the early and great songwriters, again, both Broadway and Hollywood. And by now, in the 30s, we have the invention of the radio. So now, all of a sudden, people all over the United States can hear these tunes that are being written for Broadway shows and for adapted for music and film, right? And they were also the popular music of the day. So after he's classically trained, after a slow start, he began to achieve success in the 1920s. By the 30s, he was one of the major songwriters for Broadway musical stage. Unlike many successful Broadway composers, Porter wrote lyrics as well as music. He was hurt in a serious horseback riding accident in 1937. He was left disabled, but he continued to work. Some of his shows and hits dating back to the 20s include Kiss Me Kate, 50 Million Frenchmen, Dewberry Was a Lady, Anything Goes, Can, Silk Stockings. Many of his numerous hits, which were included in the film by the same title, Night and Day, Begin the Beginning, I Get a Kick Out of You, Well Did You Ava, I Got You Under My Skin, Let's Do It, Let's Fall in Love, You're the Top. And this is all from the 30s through the 50s. Another composer that was very important during this time was Irving Berlin. Many of his tunes are considered part of the Great American Songbook. So when I say the Great American Songbook, I'm referring to many of these tunes that are now considered jazz standards or standards, right? And they all were tunes written by composers like Cole Porter and Irving Berlin, who wrote tunes specifically for Broadway. But a lot of these Broadway shows then became films, right? And so a lot of these tunes were then recorded specifically for the film version of a Broadway show. And that's when they often refer to it as the golden era of the musical, the 1930s and 1940s. Musicals started to die out in the 50s. One exception would be like West Side Story is probably the most popular, most famous musical of the 1950s. But by then, it was starting to wane. So the golden age of the musical, or golden era, and the primary Hollywood company that was cranking out these musicals was MGM, Metro-Goldwyn. They were known for their huge lots in LA and Hollywood, I mean, gigantic lots. And most films were shot on these back lots, right? They weren't shot on location. Back then, it was considered prohibitively expensive, and they hadn't really figured out how to shoot on location. So they recreate what looks like New York City on a back lot. Oftentimes, composers would come and watch films being shot to get an idea of what kind of feel they wanted to write for. But there were common themes in early film music, like in a car chase, right? The music was fast and often in a minor key. What's the difference between major and minor? Anybody? Yeah.
Minor sounds sadder.
Sure. Yeah. Minor sounds sad or maybe scary in some instances, right? Probably the most remarkable and amazing two-note melody ever written for film music in film. Everybody knows what that is, right? Who would have ever thunk something like that? And it also has a minor or dissonant feel to it, because those two notes are only a half step apart. In the Western 12-note scale system that we have, so from C to C, there are 12 notes, and they're made up of a series of half tones and whole tones. That's not the case everywhere. Some parts of early African music have what are considered quarter tones, where there's actually another pitch in between that C and C sharp. Hard to imagine. So there are more than 12 notes in the scale. So MGM, the golden era of musicals, So let's listen to one of a couple of these tunes and then we'll wrap it up. Maybe we'll just listen to one.
Craving? Weighing in. For as little as $6.99, get wings, a personal pan pizza, or a melt.
Yes, before whisper just once more. Easy to love. MGM's Holiday in Paradise. Rhythm and romance filmed in one of the beauty spots of the world. Here Esther introduces her new swimming partner, John Bromfield, a rugged guy who can't take no for an answer when it comes to the woman he loves. But then everyone loves Esther. Everyone except her boss, that is. And Van Johnson is her boss. The human cash register, they call it. Anything for a buck. Until... Enter Tony Martin, whose favorite hobby is women. You got it. You got it. Hey! Tony packs a kiss and starts a romantic revolution. And oh, how he can sing a love song. Don't sigh like you. I'm giving fair warning to you. Look out. I'm romantic. One side it isn't just to make the pretty flowers grow, 'cause we both know the wetter the season, the better the reason to come tight, and love you, love you, love you tonight. That's what a rainy day is for.
Well, here we go!
Thank you guys very much. Next week we'll hit a lot of the famous MGM musicals from the 30s and 40s, and watch and listen to a lot more music in film. You guys have a great night. Thank you very much. And I apologize about the cold. Can't believe that.